You're listening to How to Drink Less, and I'm your host, Adriana Cloud. Whether your goal is to cut back, take a break, or say goodbye to alcohol for good, this podcast will help you stop drinking on autopilot, learn how to manage cravings, and feel fully in control around alcohol. It's easier than you think. Listen on to find out how. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to this week's episode of How to Drink Less. Now, you've heard me talk before about motivation and why that's important. And I actually have an episode called Why Your Motivation Matters. That's episode 12 if you haven't listened to it already. But today I want to expand on that topic and focus specifically on external motivation, namely, what happens when we try to change our drinking for someone else? Maybe this has already happened to you. Your partner or a friend or a coworker may have expressed concern about your drinking and gently recommended or maybe even told you in no uncertain terms that you should cut back. Maybe there have even been ultimatums from people in your life that you must change your drinking or you will lose your job or your relationship or your housing situation or risk severe health consequences or social consequences. And in that moment, maybe you felt determined, like, okay, this is it. I'm going to prove to them that I can change. Initially, external pressure can be a powerful spark. Sometimes, when others reflect back to us what they see and how our drinking affects them, it's the wake up call we didn't want but needed. It can actually be quite eye opening to hear how someone else experiences our drinking, because so often when we drink, our perceptions are dulled and our self awareness is severely diminished. So, frankly, we have no idea what we really like when we drink. So, yes, it can be a powerful moment of reckoning when someone brings up your drinking and expresses concern. And even if they don't say anything explicitly, maybe you do already have that awareness that your drinking impacts others as well. And maybe you already know that when you drink, you're not showing up as your best self in your relationships. But here's the thing. If you're trying to change your relationship with alcohol only because someone else wants you to or thinks that you should, it's not going to stick. You cannot change yourself for other people. Not if you want to feel good about that change. Because when you're bending under external pressure, it comes from guilt, shame, or trying to control other people's opinions of you. And that's really shaky ground to build sustainable new habits on. And here's why. Guilt and shame aren't a long-term fuel source. They might burn hot and fast, but they don't sustain you when things get hard. Sure, they might motivate you to pour the wine down the drain after a rough night or after a confronting conversation with your children or your partner. And that might be enough to help you string together a few dry days where you vow to get your act together. But any action that comes from shame and guilt doesn't usually come with a thought out plan, and more importantly, it doesn't come with support. Shame doesn't teach you how to do things differently, it's just screaming at you that you should avoid repeating past mistakes. And also, shame and guilt feel terrible. And so, rather than feeling inspired to build something beautiful and sustainable, you're more likely to try to escape yourself, which means you're actually more likely to end up drinking just to numb those awful feelings. And when your motivation comes from outside of you, so does your validation. You end up measuring success by how other people react instead of how you actually feel. You're focusing on, did they notice that I skipped wine at dinner? Do they believe I'm really trying? Are they giving me enough credit for how hard this is for me? Are they proud of me yet? So you're scanning for feedback and looking for signs that you're good enough now, and you measure your progress based on other people's response. But if you don't see the reaction and approval you're hoping for, you start to think, well, why bother? they don't even care, so what's the point? And meanwhile, you're not checking in with how you feel, and you're probably not doing the inner work of reprogramming your reliance on alcohol. It's also important to point out that change driven by fear keeps your nervous system stuck in survival mode. When you fear rejection or judgment or losing someone you love, those fears, of course, are very real. But if that's what you're focused on, then your brain is always scanning for danger and for signs that your worst fears are about to become reality. That means that you're always waiting for the other shoe to drop. So it's hard to think about the future and to build a joyful, intentional, free life from that place. And when you're making changes for someone else, it can build resentment. Instead of making intentional choices that you feel proud of, you're in reaction mode, centering someone else's approval. So even if you do manage to willpower your way to cutting back for a while, it doesn't feel like freedom when you're doing it because you're trying to meet someone else's expectations and their timeline. You might tell yourself this is the right thing to do, but if the effort doesn't seem appreciated, it starts to feel like you made a sacrifice for nothing. You start thinking, I gave this up for you instead of I chose this for me. And finally, if you haven't addressed your desire to drink and you're just trying to prove to others that you can be good, quote unquote, you won't ever trust yourself that you've really changed. When you're abstaining from drinking or drinking less, just because that's what other people want and expect from you, you're simply denying yourself what you still actually want. The craving is still there. You probably still think, I would love a drink right now, but I'm not allowed to have it. And that makes your success feel very fragile because you still don't feel in control around alcohol. You're simply resisting temptation, and you probably have not developed other coping mechanisms to replace alcohol with. That's what I help my clients to do in coaching, to address the actual reason why they were over drinking in the first place. Together, we look at what alcohol is doing for you, what role it's playing, what need it's meeting, and then we find better, more nourishing ways to meet those needs. Because alcohol isn't just the problem. At some point, it was a solution for something. Maybe for managing stress, anxiety, disconnection, loneliness, for allowing you to relax, for allowing you to shut off the inner critic. Alcohol had its benefits. And that's why coaching helps, because we can uncover the parts of you that still believe you need alcohol to cope or belong or be loved. And we can teach your brain new ways to meet those needs from within. That way, you're not just resisting a drink with gritted teeth, you're genuinely learning not to need alcohol and not to want it. So I hope it's clear by now that while someone else's concern or intervention might be the initial jolt that sets you on the path towards change, if you want to stay on that path, you have to look inward. Real, lasting change comes from wanting something better for yourself. It comes down to shifting from external pressure to inner clarity. In the first instance, when you're doing this for other people, it sounds like I have to do this so that they'll forgive me and approve of me and think that I'm good enough. And when you're doing it for yourself, it sounds like I'm choosing to do this because I want to show up differently for the people I care about. I'm choosing to change so I can feel better and so that my behavior is more aligned with my values. In the first case, your motivation is compliance. You're trying to follow someone else's rules and expectations so you can control their perception of you. In the second case, your motivation is integrity. You're deciding who you want to be. So I want you to ask yourself honestly, if no one else cared how much you drank, who do you want to be around alcohol? Would you want to feel buzzed every night? Would you want to pour a glass of wine automatically whenever you start cooking dinner or whenever you sit down on the couch with Netflix? Would you want to day drink when you're on vacation just because you can? Or would you want something else? Would you want to wake up feeling steady and proud? Would you want to know that you can go to a party and actually enjoy yourself without needing a special drink in your glass and to remember it the next day? Would you want to become someone who doesn't need a drink to take the edge off? Whether or not someone else has already spoken to you about your drinking, I want you to ask yourself, do you feel good about your current drinking habits, or is alcohol taking away more than it's giving? If you know deep down that you want a different relationship with alcohol, that's enough to start. And if you're listening to this and realizing that a lot of your efforts to change your drinking have been motivated by guilt, shame, or the fear of letting someone else down, that's okay. That's very human. That's where so many of us start. I too have worried about what other people think of my drinking, and I've desperately wanted to prove to them that I didn't have a drinking problem. But what would it look like to shift into I choose to? What would it feel like to change because you want to? Because you deserve to feel proud of yourself in the morning and to feel in control and to show up fully present in your relationships instead of glassy-eyed and focused on how much wine is left in the bottle. What would be possible for you if you stopped trying to prove that you're good and instead started choosing what feels good and true and right? You don't have to prove anything to anyone. And the truth is, you don't owe anything to anyone. You don't owe anyone changing your habits. You get to decide what you want your relationship with alcohol to look like, and then you get to build that life, one choice at a time. If you're ready to start exploring what that could look like for you, here's one small thing you can do today. Download my free guide, 7 Steps to Kickstart Your Sobriety. It will walk you through how to start before you feel ready, because there is no perfect time. And it will also help you to unpack your patterns and triggers so you can start making different choices. And it will show you how to build real momentum without trying to be perfect. You can download it using the link in the show notes. It's completely free. And listen, there's no better time to start this work than right now. The holidays are just around the corner, and if you're already feeling anxious about how to navigate office holiday parties or winter travel or family stress without overdrinking, let's not wait until you feel completely overwhelmed. Let's start now, so that by the time those events roll around, you've already got real tools in your back pocket and a solid foundation under your feet. When you work with me, from our very first session, I will teach you practical tools for how to stop a craving and recenter yourself so you can make more intentional choices from day one. If that sounds like something you want, you can book a free consultation and we can talk more about what that looks like for you and see if we're a good fit to work together. You will find the link for the consultation in the show notes as well. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you all next week. If you're looking for practical advice for how to say no to alcohol and say yes to yourself, you will want to get on my email list. Sign up to receive my free guide with 7 steps to kickstart your sobriety. The link is in the show notes, so go and grab it now, and I'll see you soon in your inbox.